Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
A word war erupts between former palace officials as Salvador Panelo urges Harry Roque to return to the Philippines and face human trafficking charges.
The Supreme Court has partially lifted the restraining order against the no-contact apprehension policy.
And President Bongbong Marcos vows not to tolerate any disrespect on our sovereignty.
The Department of Education is set to hire 16,000 new teachers ahead of the upcoming school year to address overcrowded classrooms and reduce the workload of public school teachers.
First in the news, former Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo urges Attorney Harry Roque to return to the Philippines. Panelo told the Big Story that the former palace spokesperson should face the human trafficking case filed against him. Panelo asserted that Roque, as a lawyer, should understand that the burden of proof lies with the government.
Meron kang warrant of arrest. Ngayon, abogado ka. Alam mo naman na the burden of proof on cases filed against you is on the government. If it is true what you're saying, na you're innocent, o di ang lakas ng chance mo. Ang magiging problema mo dyan, kung mananatili ka sa Hague, ang perception ng tao, tama man o mali, natatakot ka kasi guilty ka.
In an interview with 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang, Roque dismissed Panelo's comments, calling them a display of gross ignorance. Roque said he would not entertain the comments of someone who lacks understanding of the asylum process.
I think that's gross ignorance of what asylum is. No? So I will not even bother to answer observation from someone who's completely ignorant about the nature of asylum.
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has begun the process of requesting an Interpol red notice for former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, who is facing qualified human trafficking charges linked to the Pogo Hub in Porac, Pampanga. Justice Undersecretary Nicholas T. confirmed that the DOJ is working with Interpol to facilitate Roque's arrest through diplomatic channels, as he is currently outside the country. T emphasized that the red notice request would also include other accused individuals involved in the case. He added that they will also seek the cancellation of Roque's passport. The charges stem from a June 2024 raid on Lucky South 99, a Pogo facility where authorities uncovered alleged incidents of human trafficking, torture, and kidnapping.
We've already triggered the process to request for a red notice from the Interpol, and hopefully, if it's granted to us, it will come out, and we'll see how it goes. So if upon implementation, if the government of the Netherlands will allow the application of the principle of non-refoulement.
Motorists are divided on the no-contact apprehension or NCAP policy, which has been temporarily allowed by the Supreme Court. Here's the report.
The Supreme Court has partially lifted the temporary restraining order on the no-contact apprehension policy or NCAP. This is in response to the urgent motion filed by the MMDA and the Solicitor General in anticipation of the heavy traffic that will be caused by the EDSA rehabilitation project.
Kung may NCAP na yung mga violators, hindi na namin kailangan parahin, magtalo, issuehan physically ng ticket, na habang ginagawa yon ay nakakaabala pa sa traffic.
But the High Tribunal said NCAP can only be implemented by the MMDA in major thoroughfares like EDSA and C5. NCAP ordinances by local government units are still unauthorized. Recall that the High Court imposed a TRO on NCAP after 3 petitions insisted that it violated the Data Privacy Act and Land Transportation and Traffic Code. The petitioners also argued that the policy burdens operators and does not penalize rail traffic violators who are often the drivers. Motorists are divided on the matter.
Pwede, mas safe. Mas safe? Oo. Tsaka use caution na rin sa mga enforcer na Mas maganda kung direkta na sa government.
Sa palagay ko, mas maganda po kung hindi na ibabalik yung NCAP. Siguro mas maganda kung personal na lang. personal na lang na titikitan.
Now let's get some insights following that development.
Primo Murillo, convener of the Passenger Forum, is now joining us live via Zoom. Thank you very much for joining us here on our program.
Good morning po.
Good morning, Angela. Good morning, Diego.
Okay. Sige, hingi po kami ng reaction po ninyo dito sa partial implementation ng NOCAP. O, ng NCAP.
Yung partial TRO is also a partial victory, no? Kasi ang nilalaban talaga namin ay TRO talaga sa kabuuan nung sa NCAP, no? I mean, lifting ng buong TRO. Kasi alam nyo, nung nilift ito na doon lang sa side ng MMDA, which is C5, EDSA, probably yung Commonwealth kasi MMDA din yan as far as we know, no? Ay kumbaga may isang part ng Supreme Court na tinatanggap yung ilang mga argumento na malaki yung natutulong ng NCAP para sa road safety. Kasi po, doon sa mismong petisyon ng Solgen, no? On behalf of the MMDA, ang nakalagay doon noong May 2023, 32,000 yung mga nag-violate ng traffic based on their recording, no? Sa mga cameras. Nung panahon po na na-implement yung NCAP, ito ay nasa 9,500 lamang. Ibig sabihin, more than 3 times yung violations. Ibig sabihin, ganoon na nangangahas yung ating mga driver na wala silang masyadong pakialam dyan sa mga rules na yan. Kasi total, wala namang certainty of apprehension, no? So sa amin, sana hindi lang ito sa major roads, no? O pwedeng mas palawakin pa natin yung listahan ng mga major roads na hindi naman lahat ng major roads o yung pinaka-busy na streets natin ay under ng MMDA. Halimbawa, siyempre, may Quezon Avenue, may Spanya, may Recto, di ba? So, kung ganyan, mas maganda na ma-enjoy natin yung safety na binibigay ng NCAP, no? Bagamat hindi yan perfecto, bagamat marami pa tayong kailangan gawin aside from NCAP, malaki ang naitutulong nito base na rin dun sa datos na nakita na rin ng Supreme Court.
Pero what would you say po doon sa mga critics, no, of this regulation na itong NCAP na ito, saying na parang revenue generating lang ito, tulad na lamang nung case in point kung bakit nagkaroon ng TRO ito doon kay Attorney Paa, na nag-fine daw po siya, pinag-fine siya ng 20,000. Your comment on that po?
Alam niyo, nakakatawa yung petition ni Attorney Pa, no? Parang hindi niya alam na bawal na humarang sa pedestrian lane. Yun yung mga ganong klaseng petition na natatawa kami kasi in the first place, dapat bawal naman talaga yun.
Yeah.
And ba't ka natatakot ma-fine kung alam mo na sumusunod ka sa rules? Diba? And sa amin, kung ang NCAP, ang paraan ng NCAP ay para mapababa ang violations, paano siya naging revenue generating program, no? Ibig sabihin, pababa ang violations. Ibig sabihin, papunta ito sa panahon na less ang violations at dapat merong transition towards dun sa paano i-educate yung mga drivers na ito, no? So sa amin, tanggap namin na mataas talaga yung fee. Pero sa pagbabalik ng NCAP kahit itong partial, dapat talaga may dry run. No? Mag-dry run ulit para mapaalalahanan ulit. Pero ang dahilan kung bakit marami nag-violate ay dahil hindi po ganun ka-conscious yung ating mga motorista. Ano yung mga bawal? Ay bawal pa lang mag-beat na red light? Alam natin lahat yun. Right. Bawal pa lang humarang sa pedestrian lane? Alam natin pero dinideny natin dahil dati pwede. No? Dahil napapakiusapan yung mga enforcer. Dahil mayroong human intervention. Parang yung enforcer, ano lang naman yan. Simple lang naman na violation yan. Pagbibigyan ko na. Kasi nga, si enforcer, naiintindihan din natin, mas tututukan niya yung mas matitinding violation dahil mag-isa lang siya . Kapag nabisi na siya sa isang violation, yung ibang mga violation, makakalusot na po. Pag camera yan, lahat, kahit po 100 sabay-sabay, mahuhuli yan ng camera.
Ayun, kasi most of us haven't seen yung system yet, no? Pero ibang detractors kasi nitong policy are saying, ayusin muna natin at saka mag-invest muna tayo sa sistema, in computer system, bago tayo mag-enforce ng NCAP policy. Parang yung binanggit nyo po na, di ba, for example, na yung camera makaka-capture lahat. Parang duda daw sila, itong system daw ng MMDA, kunyari may isang violation tinutukan ng camera, baka may blind spot daw sa kabila na mas may major violation at hindi daw nakuha.
Ang sagot po dyan yung online adjudication. No? Dapat maging efficient din doon sa paano i-dispute. No? Kumbaga, hindi na kailangan mag-set pa ng ng isang hearing na dapat mayroong appearance. Online adjudication. Pagka meron akong violation, pakita nyo sa akin yung screenshot. No? Ngayon, papakita ko rin sa inyo doon sa screenshot na yon na ito, may ituturo ako na part doon. Diba? Kaya magre-request ako na pwede bang ma-check yung part ng video na to. Kasi meron akong iniwasang bata dyan. Merong confusing signs dyan. Tingin ko, yung parte na yan, naiintindihan natin yung mga ganyang reklamo and ayaw natin na maging dahilan yan para hindi ma-implement yung NCAP. So, yan ay isang challenge din doon sa mga LGUs, doon sa private partner, at etong sa ngayon na i-lift na part yung MMDA na maging maayos at mas naiintindihan ng mga motorista yung dapat nilang sundin.
Ay, medyo confusing lang po sa iba kasi national roads ang EDSA C5. So far, with the partial lifting, covered pa nitong NCAP policy, no, yung C5 at saka yung EDSA and Commonwealth. For the meantime kasi, alam naman natin na ang daming mga tao from the north and southern provinces ginagamit ang EDSA. Paano kung nagka-violation daw sila sa EDSA na no contact, tapos biglang umuwi na sa province nila and magre-renew ng lisensya, may problema pala. Ano po ang mangyayari sa ganyan?
Dapat po kasi na-receive nila yung notice. No.
Okay.
Yan nga yung kinatatakot namin kasi nung panahon po na NCAP implementation, isa sa mga reklamo din, yung mabagal dumating na notice.
Yes.
Ang karamihan po ng mabagal dumating na notice ay yung sa side ng MMDA. Na hindi po yan kasalanan ng MMDA. Yan po, required po kasi yung mga government agency na gumamit ng PhilPost. Yan yung snail mail. Mayroong dahilan kaya tinatawag na snail mail yan. Diba?
Yes.
Mabagal po talaga. May nagreklamo, halos 1 taon na bago nyo na-receive.
Yeah.
Nung sa private na delivery service, mas mabilis. Ngayon ang paraan, nung LGU, meron silang private partner, hindi yun covered nung rule na yon.
Yes.
Na kailangan dumaan sa PhilPost. Kaya doon sa private partner po, 1 week pa lang, mahaba na ngayon 1 week, in a few days, marireceive mo na. Ang problema, kung mali yung address mo. Diba? Dapat po, maging conscious din yung mga motorista na tama yung address na binigay nila. Bakit ba mali ang binigay nilang address? Diba ba? So, kailangan nilang i-correct. Kung sila ay nagre-renta before, lumipat na sila, this is the time to correct. During the dry run is the time to correct. Na tama po yung address na makaka-receive ng notices.
Nagkakaroon din po kasi ng mga pagkukumpara, no, dun sa, tulad nga po na nabanggit natin kanina, kasi hati talaga yung mga motorista sa regulasyon na ito. Nagkakaroon po ng pagkukumpara sa US, saka dito po sa ating bansa, sinasabi nila, pag daw sa US, pwedeng i-contest, yung mga ipinapataw na violation sa kanila through no contact apprehension policy. Pero sa atin, guilty na agad, fine na agad. Yun po yung isa sa mga major concern po ng ating mga motorista.
Yan po. Kaya gusto natin mayroong online adjudication, pwedeng doon mag-dispute.
Doon.
No? Mas maganda, efficient din yung online, yung adjudication, yung dispute, para po hindi maging problema yung implementation na yan.
Right.
So, nakikita naman nila pala, no, na maganda ang NCAP, yung party lang na yon, paano mag-dispute. Ibig sabihin, natutuwa tayo na may mga motorista nakakita niyan. Kasi alam niyo po yung nangyari mga sunod-sunod na aksidente, nakakatakot talaga kasi ibig sabihin yung mga drivers, wala nang pakialam kung may matay, may mapilay. Basta sila, gusto nila, mabilis sila, gusto nila, wala silang pakialam sa traffic rules. No, nagda-drive lang sila. Ngayon, with NCAP, we are training our drivers to be defensive. Defensive dahil uhulihin sila kapag hindi sila sumusunod.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Primo Morillo, ang convener of the Passenger Forum. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Maraming salamat, Diego and Angela.
Right, also joining us is Melencio Vargas, the National President of AltoDAP. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning po, sir. At yung subaybay, tagapakinig.
Okay. Alright, so yung comment na lang po natin dito sa no contact apprehension policy na ipatutupad na po sa Lunes ng MMDA. Sir?
Wala naman. Yes, ako naman tayo doon dahil may ruling na kailangan.
Nako. Sir, medyo paayos na lang po natin yung pihit po tayo ng konti para sa signal para mas maintindihan po namin kayo. Oo. Ayan.
Hello?
Yes.
Yan.
Yan, okay, sir.
Okay. Siguro po, doon sa nilabas ng Supreme Court, kailangan sundin natin dahil Supreme Court yan
Right.
na naglabas yan ng ililipted ng, yan po sa MMDA lang naman po yung ililipted eh.
Kaya po partial, ano?
Yes, ma'am.
Oo. Pero kayo po ba? Kasi if I'm not mistaken, kasama po kayo doon sa petitioners noong 2022 to yung nag-file nga po ng TRO dito sa no contact apprehension policy. Ano-ano po ba yung naging agam-agam po ng ALTODAP dito?
Ang agam-agam po namin kasi doon, kaya po kami, isa po ako sa nag-file dahil nga ang nangyayari po, yung ang lagi pong napepenahan na sa amin, yung mga operator. Kasi hindi naman po natin natitrace talaga na yung doon sa camera na yan, yung face ng mga driver kung sino talaga nagmamaneho. Tapos ang nangyari pa po, lalo doon sa local government, may hatian po sila ng 60-40.
Saan po, ano po yung 60-40? Can you explain?
May provider po kasi sila na doon sa local 40%, doon po sa provider nila 60%.
Service provider po ng yung mga CCTV cameras?
Yes po.
So, and that is illegal po, ayon po sa inyo?
Yes po. Tapos doon pa po doon sa penalty nila, masyado pong napakatataas ang penalty nila. Yun po yung tinutulan namin doon. At gusto po namin talagang malaman na sino ba talaga ang mananagot, di ba? Pagka naman po nag-violation, driver dapat ang managot. Ang nangyayari po, pati po yung mga operator, yun po yung nagkakaproblema dahil minsan po pag nag-i-registro ka ng sasakyan, ay naka-alarma ka.
Yes, oo.
Hindi na
Ngayon, kung
po
wala
ba
na
dapat...
po sa inyo yung driver.
Oo. Sir, go ahead po.
Kung wala na po sa halimbawa po, kung galit sa akin ako, public utility, yung driver ko nagalit sa akin dahil pinagsasabihan ko, pahuli sa sakit at biglang umalis sa akin. Sino na po ang mananagot? Yung operator na. Kawawa naman po kami doon sa public transport.
Hindi po ba dapat parang kumbaga under your jurisdiction nga po itong mga drivers na to, gawa na lang po kayo ng internal ruling. Kaya po dapat po ayusin yung schedule nila para by that time na meron pong violation na nahuli, check na lang po natin kung sino po dun sa oras na yun yung driver at saka po ninyo siya kausapin at pagmultahin. Tama po ba?
Tama po kayo doon. Siguro po, pagka po talaga, ito po yung pag-uusapan po ng mga operator driver ngayon, ito po mong nangyari dito sa MMDA. MMDA pa lang po naman yung inililifted eh. Kaya ako po, sa tingin ko, kailangan po talaga sundin natin ito. At siguro po, makikipag-unayan kami sa MMDA. Kailangan lang po sana yung malinaw na guidelines na dapat po, kung sakaling nahuli, kailangan po within 5 days, maidala na kagad yung summon sa driver para at least alam namin kung sinong driver yan. Kung halimbawa po, ang gagawin ko, kung halimbawa operator po ako, ngayon, itong mga driver, papipirmahin ko na itong araw na to, ikaw nagmamaneho sa sasakyan ko.
So, yun na lang ang hiling po ninyo, dialogo sa kanila para mas mapabilis. Kasi nung na-implement po ba ito, may experience po ba kayo na gano'n po katagal na ibigay po sa inyo yung notice na meron po palang violation sa inyong hanay?
Napakatagal po dahil kasi doon po nga lumalabas na magugulat ka na lang na biglang ang tutubusin mo, napakalalaki. Kaya magugulat ka. Kaya minsan hindi mo na kayang tubusin. Yun po. Kaya nga at saka sa akin sa panic po ng ALTODAP, gusto ko lang po namin sana magkaroon ng isang magandang guidelines. Kung anong guidelines para yun po yung panunundan at para masabi po namin, yung mga driver namin, na ito yung gagawin natin. Yun po yun.
Sa inyo po bang hanay, nakasulat na po kayo o have you reached out to MMDA regarding this?
Wala pa po dahil bago pa lang pong biglang
kahapon pa lang no?
Opo.
Okay. Alright, sige, patuloy po kami.
Makikipag-ugnayan po kami sa kanila. Sige po.
Right po. Okay, patuloy po kami makipag-ugnayan din po sa inyo regarding this. For the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Melencio Vargas, ang National President ng AltoDAP.
Bago tayo umalis, I just like to add, no, I understand yung sinasabi ni Sir because parang yung nangyari sa atin yan when, di ba, nagkaroon ng aksidente, then the insurance claimed their car already kasi binay out nila. So yung possession ng car was with them already. Tapos naka-receive ako ng summons from Manila LGU nung panahon ng
violation
na 4 na violation with picture of the car. Ang problema dito kasi
we don't own the car anymore.
We don't own the car anymore. Transferred na. Ang problema, yung initial, yung naka-register sa NCAP, pag hindi pa updated, every 1 year ang updating eh. So anong nangyayari, pag may violation ka, wala pa yung 1 year, in between the 1 year ka, sa'yo ang violation.
True, oo.
Wala kang panglaban because hindi kita yung loob ng picture eh. Not like in Switzerland, na hindi nakatali sa car ang violation, nakatali sa personality.
Kaya dapat high resolution.
Tsaka ang ruling nila, like in Europe, pag hindi na-capture ang mukha mo, clear capture of your violation and the face of the driver, they will not send the summons. May mga, yung sinasabi...
Maigi siguro matawagan natin yung MMDA.
Yung guidelines.
Anyway, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The Interior Department is urging LGUs to adopt cashless transactions.
To discuss that further, we have Annalisa Bonagoa, Director of the ILG's Bureau of Local Government Development, joining us now on Zoom. Good morning po, ma'am.
Magandang umaga po at sa ating mga panood.
Yun nga po, hingi na lang po kami ng update dito po sa ating bagong panuntunan regarding po sa paggamit po ng cashless transactions.
Maraming salamat. Yung bagong issuance ng DILG, this is the DILG Memorandum Circular 2025-42. Ang title nito ay Guidelines in the Implementation of Electronic Payments and Collection System for Taxes and Charges for Local Government Units. Ito po ay pursuant and in connection with Executive Order 170 na inisyu noong May 12, 2022, which mandates all government agency to adopt digital payments for government disbursements and collections. So it directs all government entities from national government to instrument to corporation and local government units to adopt digital payment channels in the respective collection.
Alright. So LGUs po natin dito, pero yan po yung paggamit, no, to be clear on that po, paggamit ng mga e-wallets, kumbaga.
Basically yun po, paggamit ng e-wallets and other, hindi lang e-wallets, other payment transaction system like bank transfers and kahit mga payment centers in the localities na accessible sa ating mga clients and to the public that are transacting with local government units.
Okay. So ito po ay implemented na po ngayon, tama po ba?
Sinimulan po namin implement ng May 20, 2025 to start of May.
Okay. So we have parang mga 5 days po since it started. Kamusta naman po?
Actually po, kasi since the Digital Payments Executive Order 70 has been issued in May 2022, so may mga advocacies na ang DILG even prior to the issuance of this memorandum circular. At offshoot din ng pandemic, no, yung lessons natin that during the pandemic, that digital payments are actually pwedeng i-implement, no, sa local government units kasi nagawa natin during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021.
Okay.
So sinundan lang natin to ng implementation, tinighten yung policies, rules, and regulation for the implementation of our local government units.
So kumbaga parang ginoong official lang po talaga natin. But the question here po, ma'am, yung transparency, how can we ensure po yung transparency ng mga transaction dito, knowing that we're going to be using yung mga cashless transaction po?
Yes, ma'am. Alam naman natin, no, pagdating sa COA, laging gusto natin ay merong paper transaction at merong kang proof of transaction by government, lalo na yung mga financial transaction. Pero dito sa online payment in government, na-ensure din natin ang transparency kasi merong clear and auditable trail for financial transaction. This includes yung paper trail kasi lahat naman yan may records of receipts and authenticity of payments. Merong nare-receive through the different online financial mechanism, kailangan naka-enroll yung payment modality sa locality at ito ay authorized by an ordinance of the local government unit. So sa digital platforms naman also offer merong public access for information. So pwedeng mag-view ng public kung ano na yung transactions ng government easily, madaling mag-record at mag-summarize ng transactions of government kasi online to. At madaling monitor yung spending ng government. At isa pa dito, nami-minimize natin yung face-to-face transaction with government offices and employees. Kasi what you see as payment or tax order of payment o kung ano man yung fees na babayaran nila are the actual fees generated by the system of local government units. Hindi ito nanggagaling kung kaninong official or employees lang ng local government. These are direct.
Makakaiwas po sa mga under-the-table transactions.
Precisely po.
Oo. So, to make it clear po, meron pong official QR code per local government unit to make sure na yun po yung legitimate na pagbabayaran ng isang tao sa kanilang local government office. Kasi we have to clear that kasi marami po ngayon mga scammers, 'di ba, na dito kayo pumunta, dito kayo magbayad, ito yung legit pero hindi naman pala.
Kasama po yan sa issuance ng DILG yung paalala sa ating mga constituency na i-access lang nila lahat ng authorized QR codes sa websites ng ating mga local government units. Hindi sila pwedeng magdepende sa website lang ng kung saan na nakukuha nila online. Dapat doon sila pupunta sa website pa rin ng local government units. At lahat ng local government units ngayon may mga Facebook pages. Pwede nilang makuha ang QR code para diretso silang magbayad. Ngayon din, karamihan, kung hindi man lahat, 958 or 63% of our local government units already have online payment systems, no? So pwedeng doon sila papasok sa mga applications at saka systems ng local government units para hindi sila maligaw kung saan sila magbabayad. Ngayon din, karamihan sa mga local government units depende sa transaction. Kung ito ay business permit system, meron na silang online system. Kung ito naman ay construction permit, meron din silang separate system. Kung ito ay payment of taxes, may separate system. So ang ating publiko, ang ating constituency ay pupunta lang doon sa mga available systems ng ating mga local government units at diretso na sila doon nagbabayad. Naka-link na yung payment modalities doon sa mga available systems for different transactions ng ating mga local governments.
Go ahead.
Meron po kayong kasi of course, moving into the digital age, we're all transitioning into that. But do you have a guide or a place where most of our kababayans could mabasa nila ano yung mga guidelines regarding cashless transactions? Kasi I'm sure ang dami nagtatanong pa rin, they want more information, paano malalaman kung ano yung fake from real. May website po ba ang DILG dedicated just for an information campaign?
Sa ngayon, wala kaming dedicated website, pero puspusan ang advocacy ng DILG kasama ang Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas dahil meron ding joint memorandum circular na inisyu ang Bangko Sentral at ang DILG and joining naman the participation of the public. Ito yung tinatawag na programang Paleng QR which encourages market vendors, sari-sari store owners, tricycle drivers, consumers, and commuters to use online payment. At sa ngayon naman, halos lahat ng tao gumagamit ng GCash, Maya, etc. So, ina-encourage natin na when they transact with local government units, they use the same, no? Hindi lang sa e-commerce, pero doon din sa kanilang mga transactions sa local governments. And then, may mga training at advocacy activities na kinoconduct ang DILG at ang Bangko Sentral, katulong din ng local government units para mapaliwanagan ng ating publiko kung paano ang tamang paggamit ng online payment mechanism.
Pero on the side, lastly, meron pa naman cash transaction. Well, hindi naman mawawala yun. Option lang naman ito. Tama po, ma'am?
Yes po, ma'am. While we are promoting digital payments, ine-encourage pa rin natin na available pa rin yung acceptance of cash and other traditional mode of payment. Kasi meron pa rin natitira na mas gusto nila, sigurado sila na inabot nila yung kanilang payment sa nararapat na or authorized representative ng LGUs. So, hindi mawawala yung cash and other traditional modes of payment while we are promoting digital payments.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Director Ana Bonagoa of DILG's Bureau of Local Government Development. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Maraming salamat po.
The so-called Duterte bloc in the Senate is set to meet to decide on their choice for Senate leadership in the upcoming 20th Congress. Here's a report.
The so-called Duterte bloc in the Senate will be meeting in the coming days. They will talk about their pick should there be a change in Senate leadership in the 20th Congress. That's amid talks of a shake-up. After returning, Senator Tito Soto revealed that 3 to 4 lawmakers from the upper chamber have approached him, broaching the idea of him taking another shot at the Senate presidency. A Duterte ally who just won a fresh term says none from their camp has spoken to Soto about this issue. Senator Bato de la Rosa says, though, messages were already exchanged with current Senate leader Chis Escudero.
So far, so good naman kami. Wala mo kami problema. I defer my decision to the group. Ano mapag-usapan namin din yun ang susundin ko. Pag-usap-usap pa kami. Kaming si Senator Bongo, Senator Robin Padilla, Senator Marcolita, ako at saka si Senator Aimee, mag-usap-usap pa kami.
And the discussion will happen as soon as Senator Robin Padilla returns from The Hague. Senator Bato believes the fight isn't just between Escudero and Soto, since there are other possible candidates. That includes Senator Alan Peter Cayetano or even Mig Zubiri, the Senate President before Escudero. Political strategist Maluti Kia agrees.
Senator Soto immediately said, if I have 13 votes, I will accept it. So you see movements, and the newest name being bantered around is Congressman Marcoleta. So you have, and there is Mig Zubiri, the former Senate President, who still has a core. So when you look at the numbers, it would be interesting how these 4 individuals will play in the Senate.
And while they want the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte halted, De La Rosa says he's prepared for it as a senator judge. Recall that Duterte says she wants a full-blown trial and that she wants a bloodbath.
Hindi ko alam. Kasi ako, ready na talaga ako to sit as senator judge. Wala akong in-explore na possibility na hindi matuloy. Hindi ko in-explore yan at wala akong effort na mag-isip ng paraan para hindi matuloy. Ang preparation ko is matuloy at ready ako to sit as a senator judge.
Senate President Pro Tempore Jinggoy Estrada also sees impeachment as a cause for division among Filipinos. But should it push through, like De La Rosa, he's ready for it. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Meanwhile, Senator-elect Ping Lacson denies meeting with Vice President Sara Duterte. Lacson said he had been receiving reports that he and another senator-elect supposedly met with Duterte, but he dismissed the information as outright malicious. Lacson explained that, quote, it is the height of impropriety to meet with her being a respondent in an impeachment case. He will serve as a senator judge after winning in the recent senatorial election.
No, very interesting itong nangyayari. It's because, tignan mo, di ba, we discussed the composition of the Senate. They're balanced eh. So far, parang 8... Yeah, no, it's really balanced. No? You have 8 sa Duterte side or around 8 or 9 sa admin and then yung supposed independent bloc. Ang interesting to see kung sino magiging minority dito at sinong hindi.
Yeah.
Kasi you also have yung swing vote, which is si Senator Risa, si Senator Coco and Senator Bam. So, if in case na medyo dikit ang both sides, importante kahit tatlo lang sila, importante yung boto nitong tatlo. For the Senate leadership,
For Senate leadership.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Oo. Pero pag pinag-usapan naman yung impeachment trial, sabi nga nila, anything is possible for other senators. Kasi, like for example, for Senator Robin Padilla, he's been open, diba, about his position. Hindi niya papayagan or hindi siya boboto sa impeachment, sa conviction ni Vice President Sara Duterte. That we know, that's number 1.
Winarning na ni SP Chis about that.
Even, diba, sabi nila, wag muna magsasalita, etc. And also, itong usapin naman na yung may pag-deny si Senator-elect Ping Lacson. Kasi nag-stem yan dun sa usapin nung time na nagkaroon ng Thanksgiving party ang alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas. Isang senador lang yung umattend, which is si Senator Lito Lapid. At nandoon nga si President Bongbong Marcos. Pero aside from that, walang ibang pumunta. Kaya may mga nagkaroon ng chismis on the side na nakipag-meet daw, etc.
Anyway, kaya ko lang nabanggit before we go to the next. Kaya ko lang nabanggit about the leadership. It's because importante ang leadership sa
Yeah,
impeachment, sa next impeachment.
And also in the Congress, there's also a talk of Senate
There is talk.
Leadership shake-up doon.
There's talk pero a lot of pundits doubt the numbers are sufficient as of the time. Mas mainit ang labanan ngayon sa Senado daw. For now.
Tignan natin.
Because yung bola ng impeachment nasa Senado na eh.
Right.
Alright, let's move on. The Department of Education announced plans to hire 16,000 new teachers ahead of the upcoming school year. The new positions come after President Bongbong Marcos approved additional teaching posts, with the Department of Budget and Management supporting the swift release of the items. Education Secretary Sani Angara thanked President Marcos for prioritizing teachers and learners, noting that the additional teaching posts will help reduce class sizes and ease the burden on educators. Angara also acknowledged the DBM for acting quickly on DepEd's request, which allows recruitment to begin in time for the new school year. The 16,000 teaching items are part of the 20,000 total positions included in the fiscal year 2025 General Appropriations Act.
And to get insights about this development, we have Cocopea Legal Counsel Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada joining us today. Good morning, sir. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, good morning.
Ayun.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning po sa inyong lahat and to all your viewers and listeners.
What is the comment of Cocopea po regarding this plan to hire 16,000 new teachers?
Well, first of all, this is not something new. Every year there is a problem on shortage of teachers. And not only in the public schools, but in the private sector as well. No? And this is just a tip of probably a bigger problem. No? And of course, we welcome this move by the Department of Education, and we support it. But we hope that DepEd also and the government looks into the entire problem related to teacher shortage. First is where do we source the 16,000 additional teachers?
Yeah.
Because this is additional.
Yes.
It's a big question.
The regular hiring. No? It's additional, I think, to 20,000 every year. Saan po kukunin yun? Kasi kung yun ay kukunin sa mga teachers na nasa private schools, then that will also be a problem, di ba? Massive migration of teachers from the private sector. And then do we have enough teachers? Ilan ba ang pumapasa tuwing LET, no? Tuwing exam ng licensure for teachers?
Plus, madami po kasi rin nagsasabi, no? Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
And also, how do we stop teachers from leaving, no, once they are already in the public schools? No? Kasi maraming nag-abroad, maraming nag-change din ng career just a couple of years. So, yung mga yan ang mga tinitingnan. And then lastly, Angelo and Angela, of course, we always push for complementarity in education. Ang ibig po sabihin is, sana tingnan din yung the complementation between the public and the private sectors, because we think, like, for example, if we expand the voucher system and allow more students to study in the private schools through government subsidy, diba, it will reduce the cost in hiring more teachers and building more classrooms. So, yun pa rin ang overall advocacy namin.
Yeah, and I've heard also kasi other teachers talk about this in the past na, every year nga, you're hiring teachers, but sometimes these teachers are asked to teach subjects na hindi sa forte nila, which inaamin nila, if they're asked to do so, parang yung education na naibibigay sa bata, hindi ganun kataas because hindi forte ang tinuturo niya. Do you see that still happening until now?
Yeah, actually that was confirmed also by many studies and researchers. In fact, related is the Second Congressional Commission. So, kasama po yun. And it affects the teachers' desire to stay, di ba? Kasi career progression and are they happy in what they're doing, di ba? So, kaya after a couple of years, umaalis na. I think it was also in one of the Senate hearings where it was also mentioned that just between 2022 and 2023, around 30,000 teachers and school personnel actually left the public school system. Medyo malaki yun. So, Diba? So, how do we deal with that?
So, kumbaga parang nangyayari, nag-offset lang. Nag-hire ka 16,000 pero may mawawalan ka 30,000 prior. We really hindi tayo maabot sa need natin. So, what can we do po to address this problem that we have, given every year also tumataas ang enrollment rate natin?
Well, sa amin, Kokopea, we've been very consistent in our advocacies. Number one is increase the budget for education. So, every year, laging mababa dun sa hinihingi ng Department of Education. So, it can hire more teachers, open more teaching slots, and also administrative personnel to support the teachers. But of course, look at the entire sector also, and look at the impact also on the private education sector. Kasi hindi rin pwedeng umalis yung teachers doon at lilipat.
Yeah.
Hindi rin pwedeng magsara or mawala ang ating private education sector. And of course, yung we want to reiterate complementarity. Let's use the resources of the private sector for delivering education, and it will help in efficient use of government resources and reduce costs for building more classrooms and hiring more personnel.
And sir, just to add lang dun sa pinopoint out ni Diego kanina na subject mismatch nga among the teachers. Sabi nga nila dito, 6 out of 10 or 6 in 10 of public high school teachers are handling subjects that they did not major in college. No, my question also is this, dun din po sa usapin ng mga guidance counselor. Sir, meron din po ako nakitang news about it na kulang na rin daw tayo sa mga guidance counselor sa mga schools. Saan po ba natin nakikita yung nag-uugat yung problema na ito? Hindi na nag-a-apply sa atin dahil mababa yung eskwelahan o meron din mga hindi na rin nag-aaral na maging guidance counselor o maging teacher?
Well, it's a combination of factors. Una, yung career ng mga guidance counselors, parang hindi nila nakikita na gano'n ka-rewarding or something na appreciates their role more. No? Kasi parang mababa ang sweldo. Tapos yung trabaho nila dati ay binibigay sa hindi naman guidance counselor. So, yun ang isang factor. Pangalawa, mahirap din maging guidance counselor. Mahirap maging professional or registered guidance counselor kasi kailangan bago ka makapag-exam, licensure exam, dapat may master's degree ka. So hindi lahat ay nagkakaroon ng ganung opportunity. So but I think that is now being addressed. May pinasa na batas recently, di ba, to address the shortage of guidance counselors. Pero medyo medyo malayo pa tayo. It's still work in progress, I believe.
Dun po sa usapin ng kanina narinig ko po nabanggit nyo rin yung pag-hire ng mga administrative assistants para nga mabawasan yung workload ng mga mismo mga teachers. And there were reports also before under the leadership of Vice President Sara Duterte na may mga na-hire din naman daw sila na mga administrative assistants pero hindi ganun ka sapat para sa need ng mga bawat eskwelahan. May mga observation din po ba tayong gano'n nakita under Kokopea?
Well, we also just rely on those reports, same reports shared by the DepEd and other government agencies. Tama po kayo, may kakulangan pa rin. In fact, yung principals po yung principals nga po sa public school sa ikulang pa. So, yun, kailangan mapunan. And yung teacher, based on the survey also, yung isang teacher, meron siyang ancillary task. Marami siyang ancillary task na hindi related sa pagtuturo. Mga nasa 50 daw yun, ancillary task. So, siguro, mabawasan man lamang yon at para makapag-focus sila sa pagtuturo ay malaking bagay talaga. So, ang sagot dyan, palagay namin, ay, of course, increase substantially the budget for education. And we can do many things and resolving a lot of these problems through increase in budget.
Alright, so definitely sobrang dami po talagang dapat i-address sa ating education sector.
Madami pang habang usapan pato. But thank you for your time, Kokopea Legal Counsel Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada.
Now, in other news, Malacanang says OWA Trust Fund was not used in the unauthorized land acquisition deal under Administrator Arnel Ignacio. According to Palace Press Officer Claire Castro, the trust fund of OWA was not affected based on the initial investigation. Ignacio was earlier removed from his post after allegedly spending 1.4 billion pesos on the acquisition of a lot where he intended to construct a facility for repatriated overseas Filipino workers. The Migrant Workers Department noted, however, that the project was not approved.
We know for sure na na-bypass ang OWA Board of Trustees dito despite the provisions of the OWA Charter. And on 6 matters, again, hindi ko muna ilalahad yon dahil we are still in the process of digging deeper and finding out more details, looking through documents, talking to personnel inside, bakit ito nangyari.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. 2 new Chinese vessels have been spotted within our exclusive economic zone. This comes as President Marcos vows anew to defend our sovereignty. Here's our report.
President Bongbong Marcos says the Philippines will not stand for any disrespect of its sovereignty. Speaking at the Philippine Navy's 127th anniversary in Subic, Zambales on Tuesday, Marcos affirmed that the country will continue to safeguard its maritime zones and entitlements in accordance with international law.
We will never tolerate any act of disrespect against our sovereignty. Wala tayong isusuko, wala tayong papapabayaan.
The chief executive also praised the country's naval forces for their resilience amid regional disputes. He said they act as peacekeepers in land and sea who are upholding our nation's maritime entitlements with dignity and with courage.
Habang kayo ay magdamag na nagbabantay sa laot sa mga baybayin ng ating bansa, nananatiling panatag ang loob ng bawat Pilipino.
Marcos also led the commissioning of guided missile frigate BRP Miguel Malvar and BRP Albert Mahini, which is a fast-attack interdiction craft. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard recently spotted 2 Chinese research vessels in our exclusive economic zone. One of those 2 was seen 130.5 nautical miles from Burgos, Ilocos Norte.
The capability of this Chinese research vessel is to conduct deep sea survey. This is the reason why it is also equipped with remotely operated vehicle and even underwater drones.
The PCG has deployed an aircraft to monitor the Chinese ships. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
The Philippine National Police is set to intensify its crackdown on street-level drug offenders following President Bongbong Marcos' directive to expand the government's anti-drug campaign. Since Marcos assumed office in July 2022, authorities have seized over 43.8 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs. However, the president acknowledged that smaller community-level drug activities may have been overlooked. In response, the PNP is developing new strategies, including the possible revival of the Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council to strengthen local monitoring and enforcement efforts. Authorities have assured the public that the campaign will be conducted with respect for human rights and in accordance with the law, aiming to avoid the issues experienced in past efforts.
Mananatili pong bloodless ang atin with respect po sa human rights, pero dapat po palakasin pa rin po yung ating operation sa anti-illegal drugs.
So I think yung mandate nga ng this administration is to respect nga yung human rights and to avoid what happened in the past administration.
Yes.
Dahil yun nga yung pinupukol ngayon doon kay former President Rodrigo Duterte,
yes,
yung kanyang supposedly, allegedly, mga EJKs, yung kanyang Oplan Tokhang.
Yeah, ang pinag-uusapan din aside from yung Commission of Human Rights role, parang a human rights mechanism within the PNP. To ensure na all the officers themselves adhere to it. And may pinag-usapan long time ago parang a human rights desks. But let's move on. The COMELEC tapped the Science and Technology Department for paper production in the recent elections. The details in this report by Mobile Journal, Denise Valdesancho.
Just days after the country concluded its national elections, Behind the Scenes is a lesser-known agency that helped make the voting process smoother and more secure, one sheet of paper at a time. Tasked with certifying the quality of paper used in the elections, the Department of Science and Technology, Forest Products Research and Development Institute, or DOST-FPRDI, tested every paper product before they could be used through their pulp and paper testing laboratory, an ISO-accredited lab.
Multiforms, yung mga balota, and then yung continuous forms, their paper seals, their multiforms, their multi-copies, their envelopes, their newsprints, they were all tested here. Actually, maraming hindi nakakaalam na meron tayo nito sa Pilipinas.
Each type of paper underwent different tests, including tests for brightness, opacity, and thickness, among others. Based on specific standards, this ensured the ballots voters use would not smudge, jam, or tear during printing and scanning.
Ang testing na ginagawa sa balota usually is grammage. So, papasok siya para basahin, di ba? So, merong particular thickness na ginagamit. For example, yung first ply should be makapal kasi doon ka mag-shade. Yung second and the third ply is mas magaan siya.
With 68 years of service and over 2 decades as an accredited testing lab, DOST-FPRDI continues to modernize. For each election, they've helped make sure everything is up to standard. This year, they took it even further by upgrading machines for measuring paper quality down to the last detail.
We were able to acquire a new equipment for the brightness opacity. We have a new spectrophotometer. We have smoothness testing machine. We have roughness testing machine.
What they can offer, international standard testing here at home, sparing clients the costs of flying samples abroad.
Very proud kami na we have upgraded laboratories and at a very low price.
As the DOST-FPRDI marks its 68th anniversary this July, the Institute looks ahead, equipping its laboratories for the future to ensure quality for every Filipino one sheet at a time. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
Member states of the World Health Organization adopted a landmark pandemic agreement aimed at boosting global cooperation against future health threats. Praised by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Helen Clark of the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness, the deal outlines new rules shaped by COVID-19 lessons. While the agreement is a key step forward, the panel noted that gaps remain in technology transfer and vaccine equity. Clark urged countries to act quickly, stressing that pathogens will not wait. The two also called for urgent funding to support preparedness and the next phase of negotiations on pathogen sharing and benefit access. Sirleaf and Clark said the agreement should open for signature by 2026 and must be backed by real investment and action to build a more resilient and fair global health system. Meanwhile, 2 giant poodles died under unclear circumstances while enrolled in a training facility that was later moved from Marikina to Los Baños. The owners were told heat stroke was the cause, but photos showing injuries have raised doubts about the true cause of death. The facility may face charges under the Animal Welfare Act for possible negligence and failure to provide proper care. Meanwhile, a stray cat was kidnapped from one of 2 neighboring pet-friendly coffee shops in Angono, Rizal. CCTV footage revealed that the owner of the other coffee shop took the cat and admitted to the act, but insisted there was no ill intent. The coffee shop owner said she is ready to face the charges and will also pursue legal action against the neighboring cafe for defamation and threats from netizens.
Alam ko yan, viral yun. Anyway, before we let you go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Peace is not found in silence, but in learning to remain calm while the world roars around you. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.